Indian culture has a long history of telling stories about ancient Hindu deities and gods who were said to have possessed limitless power. It is even conceivable that these extraterrestrial beings once lived alongside us and even built cities. Is there any truth to this? Or is this just another urban legend involving one of the most mysterious places on Earth? The island nation of Sri Lanka, south of the Indian Peninsula, is home to an ancient sky metropolis with perhaps the most cutting-edge technology. The Indian nation of Sri Lanka is home to a diverse range of cultures, breathtaking scenery, ancient relics that are still used today, and several UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including the eminent Sigiriya. Sigiriya, also known as the Lion Rock, is a popular tourist destination in Sri Lanka. The inhabitants frequently refer to the city as the eighth wonder of the world because they believe that the gods built it. Sigiriya was once the site of an ancient city that was perched atop the Menhir Rock. A remarkable 600 feet of rock hangs over the town of Dambula in the Metal region. Since 1982, the location has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site, drawing thousands of visitors each year. Many people think the site is strange looking, although this could be due to the perfectly flat top, which gives the impression that it was precisely carved at a specific angle. According to contemporary archaeologists, the Lion's Fortress, which boasted an elaborate array of fortresses, expansive courtyards, lagoons, canals, alleys, and fountains, was thought to have been constructed on the mountain during the 5th century AD under direction of a rebellious king by the name of Kashayapa. The native stories, however, seem to indicate otherwise. Tens of thousands of years before the 5th century AD, they claim a Hindu god named Ravana of the Ashura race built this ancient city. Following their descent from the heavens, the gods are said to have ruled over a sizable portion of humanity. The Rama Setu, a magnificent bridge constructed by the god Rama that connects India and Sri Lanka, further supports this concept. However, there are no archaeological findings to back up this claim since the bridges are man-made and were built by unidentified beings. After the conflict with Rama, it is stated that Ravana's palace in Sigiriya, where he supposedly controlled Sri Lanka, was destroyed. It now raises a question, doesn't it? If the stories of the Rama Setu were eventually verified by archaeological finds, was it possible that the tales of Sigiriya were also true? Perhaps what we see at Sigiriya today are the remains of Ravana's palace? Approximately 5,000 years ago, during the Mesolithic era, there were signs of human habitation close to Sigiriya. Moreover, fragments of evidence from a number of rock shelters and caves in the region thought to have been utilized by Buddhist monks in the decades just prior to the Common Era have been discovered. However, current archaeologists continue to maintain that the earliest proof of human habitation at the location dates to King Kasyapa's reign at the end of the 5th century. King Kasyapa ruled over Sri Lanka from 473 to 495 CE. After he gave the order to kill his father, King Kasyapa went on to usurp the throne from under his brother. Although his father did not die by his hands, the mere fact that he gave the death sentence was against the beliefs of his Buddhist clergy and his people. Weary of this rejection and feeling that his life could be taken from him, legend says that King Kasyapa relocated to the area surrounding Sigiriya. According to legend, King Kasyapa moved to the region of Sigiriya out of fear of this rejection and thought that his life may be stolen from him. In hopes that it would not be unconquerable by his brother's forces, he built a fortress atop the megalithic rock. The army of Kasyapa was unfortunately routed. Kasyapa killed himself following the defeat of his army, and the land was subsequently given to Buddhist monks by his brother Moggallana, who used it as a monastery there until the 14th century. Around the 15th century, the area was abandoned and hasn't been inhabited since. When John Forbes came across it while riding his horse, he immediately informed Western archaeologists about it. Following this discovery, a number of Western archaeological crews quickly excavated the site and were astonished by what they found. It was discovered that this time period was capable of advanced engineering. Urban planning was done exceptionally well in the old metropolis. Archaeologists discovered a number of structures, but they had no idea what they were for, so they were simply dubbed opulent gardens, citadels, and palaces. An additional building that was found at Sigiriya site resembles a step pyramid that was common in Mesoamerican architecture. Further examples of cutting-edge engineering can be found in a park on the city's western side. In addition to a more sophisticated hydraulic system that supplies waters to the plants, there are numerous different water retention structures spread out throughout the park. The canals, lakes, and dams make it clear that this park required extensive planning before it was built. Even more astonishing is the fact that clay was used to build every single one of these structures on the monolithic rock. The fact that everything atop the monolithic rock was constructed of clay baffles archaeologists, and one is left to wonder how the ancient builders managed to move an estimated 3 million bricks to the summit of the mountain because there were no stairs. Even with the stairs, it takes around 2 hours to get to the summit of the mountain. In fact, the stairway that can be found at this location now was created a century ago to attract tourists. The enormous white marble blocks seem to hold more fascination than the brickwork. They cover every pathway in the palace, despite not being local. Given that this marble supposedly weighs tons, how did these ancient builders manage to lift them to the mountain summit? As a result, many people have questioned the archaeological theory regarding the actual construction of the site. Archaeologists also noted and determined that the carvings on the rock wall were merely made in antiquity, but it's yet to be explained how it was capable to cut those markings in places where there was no slope for people to stand. Additionally, this rock has some significant holes that have been drilled into it. Once again, archaeologists are baffled as to how these holes could have been made by using simple tools. You might be surprised to learn that instead of any of these items mentioned above, the majestic granite water tank that occupies the site's center is what most people find to be impressive. The water tank may appear to be made of granite blocks, but up close you will see that it's actually carved into the rock. Given that the tank is around 90 feet long, 68 feet wide, and over 7 feet deep, it is implied that more than 3,500 tons of granite had to be manually excavated in order to construct it. There is no doubt that granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, and it would have taken a long time for them to do so if they had been utilizing simple weapons and tools. So the inhabitants of this time period truly toil away for years on end to create this tank. Or maybe what we are seeing is proof of a highly developed technology. Tourists at this site would notice that there are no signs of chiseled marks. Instead, you see long scopes of lines that resemble those seen in ancient Egypt and Peru. Many academics contend that the prehistoric builders understood how to manipulate the porosity of rocks, making them flexible to work with. The tank has an additional benefit of never drying out, even during the hottest times of the year, which is an incredible revelation. The tank includes a drainage mechanism to make sure it never overflows, but it also appears to gather water by percolation. The numerous scoop marks on the granite walls and the enormous amount of material needed to build the several structures on top of Sigiriya raises doubts about the extraordinary engineering achievement and suggests that this civilization may have been considerably older. Could the ruins of a civilization that was wiped out by a flood or another natural disaster be found at Sigiriya? Maybe this was a palace to hide during the flood in the Sky City. In addition to holding this belief, the residents of the region also support it with a tale that claims that this was not the only product of an ancient civilization, but also of a being who descended from the skies. Because there were no stairs going to the summit of the mountain, as already established, scholars speculated that the ancient architects may have used anti-gravity technology or perhaps flying machines. Yet local tales strongly contest this hypothesis. Tradition holds that gods who descended from the heavens built Sigiriya. They traveled to Earth and imitated their own god, Kubera, the god of wealth, in the construction of Sigiriya. According to the other stories, Ravana, a former god king, may have lived in Sigiriya. These legends also assert that he built the original structures on the property, such as the sizable granite tank that served as his swimming pool. Ravana was born into a race known as the Asura, which was characterized as strong demigods who first came to Earth thousands of years ago, according to the ancient Indian literature called Mahabharata. Ravana was not born as a typical human being. Many argues that these tales represent factual accounts of the extraterrestrial encounters on Earth rather than merely myths. Could it be that all these deities used a cutting-edge technology to lift these materials required to build Sigiriya? Although it was thought that the Venemas, which were the gods used to travel between heaven and earth around the globe, was in the possession of the Asuras. According to some traditions, Ravana was a reptile god with shape-shifting abilities, and the Asuras were hybrid gods. The city of Sigiriya may have the answers to the pressing questions on people's minds. This is because from the outside, it is impossible to miss the lion claws that the locals call these sites exterior, despite the fact that lions have one little claw and 4 enormous ones. Considering that some locals even claim that these feet belong to Ravana, perhaps this supports the idea that the area's god is a reptile. Only Ravana's father was a human, while his mother belonged to another species, possibly even a reptile, according to some of the ancient texts, supporting the idea that Ravana may have been a hybrid humanoid. One of Ravana's distinctive abilities was shape-shifting, and he also had an intriguing talent for almost imperceptible environment blending. It gets stranger as more research on Sri Lanka and Sigiriya is done. How would you rate the Sigiriya site? Do you think the 5th century dating for Sigiriya's first recorded human settlement is correct? The granite swimming pool was expertly shaped, and roughly 3 million bricks were hauled to the mountain summit by humans without access to advanced technology. Should archaeologists attribute this site's creation to Ravana and to Asura extraterrestrial species? It is conceivable that Sigiriya once housed a sophisticated civilization of reptilian gods with technology that was far superior to our own. Please share your thoughts in the comments below.